Okay, so the second problem that we have to simplify and classify, I have 3x plus 2 times the quantity of 9x minus 1 times the quantity of 3x minus 4 times x squared. Okay, this is my suggestion. You can go about this any way you want to. Okay, but my recommendation is to multiply these two binomials together, then take that answer and multiply by that binomial, then take that answer and multiply it by that x squared. Okay, I try to get rid of my binomials first. So I'm going to go ahead and distribute. So 3x times 9x is 27x squared. 3x times negative 1 is negative 3x. 2 times 9x is 18x. And 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. Now, before I multiply this by this 3x minus 4, I am going to go ahead and combine my like terms. So I have 27x squared minus 3x plus 18x minus 2. Oh, for the love of God, what did I just do? I said that I was going to combine those two terms, and I didn't. My bad, sorry. Negative 3x plus 18x gives me a 15x. You're probably like, Mrs. Gerwitz, what are you doing? Okay, so now I am going to multiply by the 3x minus 4. I'm going to save my x squared for later. He's gonna wait a minute. Now, this is personally what I do. I like to kind of line up my stuff. So I'm going to do 27x squared times 3x. That one I get 81x cubed. Okay, so this is what I'm going to just kind of separate. Okay, then 27x squared times negative 4 gives me a, what do I get there? I get a what? Negative 108 x squared. Okay, now at this time, I'm finished with my 27x squared. So now I'm going to move on to 15x times 3x. That gets me a 45x squared. So what I'm going to do, that's a positive 45x squared, I'm going to line it up. So notice I'm working vertically. I'm going to line up my like terms. Okay. Then I have 15x times negative 4, and that's a negative 60x. So I'm going to start a new column of my linear terms, I guess you could say. Now at this time, I have handled everything being multiplied by 15x. So now I'm going to do negative 2 times 3x, which gives me a negative 6x. And that's what I lined up my constant term, my linear terms. And then I have negative 2 times negative 4, which gets me a positive 8. Okay? And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and combine all of my like terms. Okay? Oh my gosh, my bunny rabbit just jumped up on my lap while I'm trying to do this math. You silly goose. So now I've got 81x cubed, and then the negative 108 plus 45 gets me a negative 63x squared. And then I've got negative 60x minus 6x, so I get negative 66x plus 8. So I've got all of that I now need to multiply by x squared. So this is quite intense, okay? So I'm going to distribute this x squared to everything here, okay? So I'm going to move on to the next page where I show that distribution. So I end up getting 81x to the 5th minus 63x to the 4th minus 66x cubed plus 8x squared. So now what I've got here, my highest degree is 5, so that's a quintic. Okay, and I have 4 terms, so that's going to be a quintic 4-termed polynomial. So that was quite intense, but you know, nothing we can't handle, right? Okay. And so that kind of concludes the 6-1. Let's look at 6-2a, where we're going to basically factor polynomials. So we're going to kind of look back at factoring these polynomials. So we're going to write, the directions are to write the polynomial in factored form. Okay, so this is a little bit of review. That's why I joined it in with 6-1. So for number 1, if I have x cubed minus 16x. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to factor out the GCF. The GCF that I have is x. And I'm left with x squared minus 16. So now here I have a difference of squares. X squared is perfect, 16 is perfect. So I end up using that difference of squares, so I get x plus 4 and x minus 4. Now this is completely factored. What we're going to see in our next lesson is how we're going to utilize this to sketch a graph. So right now we're just kind of reviewing that whole factoring thing, okay? Let's look at our second problem where we have to write the polynomial in factored form. So I have 2x cubed plus 10x squared plus 12x, trying to link it to 6-1. Right now I'm looking at a cubic trinomial because my highest degree is 3 and I have 3 terms. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to factor out the GCF. GCF that I see is a 2x. And then I'm left with x squared plus 10x. Oh, dear God in heaven, not plus 10x, my bad, plus 5x, and then plus 6, okay? So I'm going to do my x method. You can do your brouhaha, you can do your trial and error. I personally do my trial and error, and I find out that I get x plus 3 and x plus 2. Please note, remember, when doing the brouhaha method, using your x method, you don't really have to go into the full brouhaha if a equals 1. You can use your shortcut, which I could do in this case. Okay, so just kind of a friendly reminder from earlier when we factored. Now I've got one more problem, number 3, to look at. So I've got negative 2x cubed minus 2x squared plus 40x. So I'm going to factor out my GCF. Now, me personally, I always like a to be positive. So noticing that my leading coefficient, that's what that's called, the leading coefficient, because x cubed is my highest degree. So that coefficient would be called my leading coefficient because it's kind of the leader of the polynomial. Because it's negative, I am going to go ahead and factor out a negative. And they actually do all have a 2 in common. So I'm going to factor out a negative 2 and also an x. Oh, also, just to kind of link to 6-1, that we are looking at a cubic trinomial again in this case, okay? And so I factor out a negative 2x, so I'm left with x squared plus x. And then that's going to be what? A minus 20 there. Okay. So now I'm going to go ahead and factor. You can use your x method and brouhaha and all of that stuff. Me personally, I'm going to use trial and error. It's all a personal preference here. So I get x plus 5 and x minus 4. And that is the polynomial in factored form. And again, in the next lesson, we're going to really see how we're going to utilize the factored form of a polynomial equation to be able to sketch. But this wraps up this lesson.